Just a few words about how COVID-19 or the corona crisis has influenced job demands and resources. Well, there is not much work published yet, but I've seen in some research of my own that we are conducting at the very moment that people find this crisis very stressful. So generally what we see is that the job demands, they go up, the job resources go down, and this makes for a combination that is very stressful. Remember the slide that I had showing that the combination of high demands, low resources is predictive of burnout, and my prediction is that burnout, the burnout numbers are going up, so the prevalence of burnout is increasing in this crisis. So one reason for a reduction in access to job resources is that many people need to work from home. And if you work from home, the social support is not so readily available. The feedback, you will need to really go after it in order to get it by getting in touch with your colleagues or clients through video calls. So it's all more effortful to get the resources that normally are easily available at the workplace when you work on location. Or if you are working in a vital occupation, so for example as a doctor or as a nurse, you are so busy with the high job demands and the high responsibilities with your patients, with the death and dying of people under your fingers, that it will be very complicated to think about mobilizing your job resources. So COVID-19 has created an imbalance in terms of job demands and resources. And this is what people notice in their work, and that's why stress levels go up. Another issue is that the crisis has caused people to ruminate a lot about the consequences of COVID-19. So it could be that you're experiencing a lot of job insecurity because everything is unclear now, and the business is also hurt dramatically. So it could be that you're not so sure about your job in the near future. And also when you ruminate a lot, so you're thinking about the crisis and about the consequences and the negativity all the time, and all the things that you read in the newspapers or see in the media, that can distract you from your work. That can make you dealing with job demands more complicated. So your head is so full with thinking about the major life event that we are going through that you don't have enough energetic resources left to deal with the job demands, or to use the resources that are there. So rumination can let's say, moderate the impact of resources on engagement in an unfortunate, undesired way. So, an unfavorable balance between job demands and resources, that's one consequence of COVID-19. And second, rumination can destroy the positive impacts that job demands, challenges, and resources can have on our well-being. Okay, having said that, we can go to the next act, the second act. So, I want to talk about the influence of leaders. How do leaders influence followers? That's the main question, but of course do this also in the context of JDR theory, because this lecture is about JDR. But first, let's go to the broader picture of how leaders can influence followers. My position is that this has not been published yet, but I've made an analysis of leadership literature, which is vast literature. And my position is that leadership can be fast and it can be slow, following the ideas of Daniel Kahneman about thinking fast and slow. So fast leadership, how does that go? So fast leaders can take the root of emotional contagion. And emotional contagion is that and you transmit your emotions directly to the other person you're interacting with. The fundamental definition is the one provided by Elaine Hatfield and their colleagues. And they claim that emotional contagion is the tendency to automatically mimic synchronized facial expressions, vocalizations, posture, and movements with those of the person and consequently convert emotions. So to interact with another, you imitate the things that he or she does, and therefore you start to get the same experience, the same feelings. So this goes in a relatively unconscious fashion, emotional contagion. So the leader can influence the follower directly. If he or she is very engaged and enthusiastic, then these positive emotions can directly transfer to followers. But also there are other effects from leaders to followers. I found a very interesting study by Barnes, Lucian and Christian, published in 2015, and then that study conducted in Italy, where they followed leaders and followers, employees, for 2 weeks with an experience sampling method that was used during one day. So we have 2 times 5 days, 10 days total, where at the start of the day, 99 leaders that participated in that study reported their sleep quality of the previous day or night, and they're equally pleased whether they had energy left, whether they had good energy after a night of sleep, let's say. And then they reported that at the start of the day and at the end of the day, their employees were asked to report whether their supervisors had shown bad behavior or what was usually supervision, and they needed to report how engaged the unit was. And people who participated, they were banked in information and communication technology, healthcare, and healthcare in Italy. So what this research has found is very interesting, an example of fast leadership effect. So they saw that on the nights, on the days, I should say, when leaders had bad sleep quality, they depleted their ego, their energy was depleted. So they didn't have the energy needed to be a good leader. So then they showed abuse supervision by downplaying their employees, for example, or ignoring them, which was then a predictor of reduced work engagement. So we see from day that the leaders slept not too well on these days. Their followers were lower on work engagement because of the fact that the leaders didn't have the energy to behave well. So we see an immediate and fast effect from day to day. So better sleep than when the high work engagement of the followers. So what about slow leadership? Slow leadership is what the literature is full of, and these are the more conscious processes that take place when we talk about leadership. So talk about a leader uses and explains his or her vision about where to go and what the future of the company is. So in the context of the agile, we can put leadership in the front of the model, and we can expect leadership to influence the job resources and the job demands of the follower. So a leader can provide support, can provide help, can provide feedback, or can set certain challenges and goals, and this will influence then how employees will feel and how they will perform. Leaders can also directly influence job crafting. So, for example, by providing autonomy and giving followers the space to optimize their own job design. Let's go first to charismatic leadership, where where leaders behave such that people want to connect with them, they appear very confident, people want to identify with them. These leaders use certain tactics as identified by John Adler, my friend, and from Switzerland. He identified several tactics that charismatic leaders show, including justification of mission by overview values, telling clear life stories using symbols, and for example, showing emotional involvement in the mission. So these are tactics that charismatic leaders use. Another mechanism is like they conducted their interesting study using the coded charismatic tactics that they found in transcriptions of TED Talks with Twitter posts. So they looked at all the talks and all the Twitter posts and then analyzed them for tactics that were used. For example, they said that the leader used metaphors. Did he or she use contrasts, ask rhetorical questions, and so forth. And there were not asked, but what the researchers did is they looked at a number of views to the TED Talk and whether people found that interesting. And when it came to the Twitter study, they looked at the number of retweets to see an immediate impact of these charismatic tactics. So what we see here is a clear positive relationship between the number of charismatic tactics you use and TED views. So leaders would use more tactics and were more charismatic, as identified by the ways they had over time afterwards more views of their talk. And also charismatic tactics used in tweets lead to more retweets over time. So that's a very nice positive impact of charisma, where people analyze what do leaders really say, what do they invoke, and that has immediate consequences. So when it comes to leadership, most of the research that has focused on transformational leadership. And with transformational leadership, leaders try to transform the attitudes and the behaviors of their followers in the direction of the group. So the individual goals become group goals. And what leaders do who are transformational, that is they help followers to grow and become leaders themselves. That's like a general principle. And one of the basic things that they do is they look at the individual needs of employees. So they realize that everybody is a little bit different, and they take care of that. And they look for strong points in followers, and make followers consequently stronger. There are several dimensions of transformational leadership. One is the one that I alluded to already, is individual consideration, where leaders are mentors who realize that each employee has their own needs and skills. And also what transformational leaders do is they use intellectual stimulation. So employees are challenged to look at problems from a different perspective. Charisma is another aspect of transformational leadership, as is inspirational motivation. So that is the 4 I's. So if we have here a study of Kimberly Brevard and others, I was also involved in the study, where we found that when leaders show transformational leadership, they provide more resources, autonomy, feedback, opportunities to develop. And this helps to perform well because people who are receiving lots of resources, they feel more engaged, they are more vigorous, dedicated, and absorbed in their work, which helps to perform well. These performance ratings were given by the leaders, and the job resources and engagement was reported by the followers. So we see an indirect effect of leadership, transformational leadership, on performance of the followers through making the work environment more resourceful. We have studied this in many different contexts, and one interesting and fascinating context is on board of this ship, what you see here. And what we do is we follow the people on board of the ship, the naval cadets, who make a voyage from Bergen in Norway to New York. And the study that I'm talking about, that was published in 2014, included 61 naval cadets, and they filled out a diary questionnaire, I should say, each day at 5 p.m. and they did so for each of the 34 days of the trip. So we have a lot of data points here, and we ask the cadets to report every day how transformational the leader was, also how transactional the leader was, and we asked them for the access they had to job resources and their work engagement. Excuse me. You see some of the cadets here climbing in the rigs. Dangerous work. So here we see the results of one naval cadet over the 34 days. We see that transformational leadership fluctuates from day to day. So the leader, maybe depending on the weather or whether he or she has slept very well, shows more or less individual consideration, intellectual stimulation, inspirational motivation, idealized influence. So all these facets of transformational leadership, they fluctuate from day to day. And the prediction is now that the engagement of the followers also fluctuates and goes hand in hand with transformational leadership, because on the days that leaders are very transformational, they provide more resources, so people should be more engaged. And if they are low in transformational leadership, so for example here or here, they provide fewer resources, and therefore the followers should be lower on engagement. And that's what we see here on the next slide. We see that leadership, the red line, goes hand in hand with work engagement, and this is because of the fact that transformational leadership goes hand in hand with the provided daily job resources, the white line. So we see here a nice pattern that we have analyzed with multi-level software. So we see that on the days that leaders are transformational, the followers are more engaged because they have access to sufficient job resources, so they can do their work very well. And on board of the ship, they have to deal with a lot of issues, like they have to sail through the storms, they meet hurricanes, they have 6 to 8 times during the whole trip, they have trainings where they do exercises with pirate attacks, for example. And this is all very demanding, and then job resources come in very handy, so leadership is here crucial. Leadership also plays a role, of course, in more mundane jobs or more regular jobs, like in the job of a school teacher. Here we followed a group of 271 school teachers. They filled out short online questionnaires for 2 weeks, and we have a lot of observations here. And what we asked the school teachers is not only for their level of work engagement, but also for their and for the leadership, but also for the challenges. How high is the work pressure from day to day? And do they have a lot of information to process? The cognitive demands we asked every day. And we asked for hindrance demands like role conflict, work-family conflict. So the prediction is now that leadership helps to translate a challenge like work pressure into work engagement. And leadership helps to buffer the negative impact of role conflict and work-family conflict, so the hindrances. And that's what we see here. So on the days that the teachers face high hindrances, they are lower on engagement, so they are less enthusiastic. But this is not the case if on that day they have a school principal that is transformational. So the white line shows the buffering impact of transformational leadership, the TL. On the other hand, we see that challenge job demands like complex work where you have to process a lot of information or high work pressure, this translates into more engagement on that day. But this is particularly so if the school principal is high on transformational leadership. So helps you, shows individual consideration, gives you feedback and so forth, so that you can deal well with the job challenges. Yeah, this is another study that we did on another trip. We have been following the naval cadets for more than 7 years now. And in last year's trip, we looked at transformational leadership, and the prediction we had was that when leaders on board of the ship are transformational, they look for the strengths in their followers and encourage their followers to use their strengths, their strong points more often. And also they encourage them to show personal initiative, these two parts here. And that then will help the followers to be engaged in their work and to perform well, as rated by their colleagues. So again, 51 cadets that traveled from Norway to New York. This time 30 work days, and we have measures of all the model components. So transformational leadership, strength use, proactive behavior, work engagement, and 2 to 3 colleagues that were in the team together with the focal participant reported about the participants' job performance. So actually they rated each other's job performance. So what are the personal initiatives that people can take on board of the ship? They can learn specific sailing maneuvers, learn to make specific knots in the ropes. They are asked, or they can take initiative to arrange social gatherings, even including cabaret. Do extra rig climbing training, set personal goals, follow lessons on cultural awareness so that it becomes easier to deal with the people on the shore in foreign harbors. Yeah, so there are many opportunities to take personal initiative, and that is what transformational leaders can encourage. So here are the findings, and don't look at the size of the betas because this is a multi-level analysis. We see here that on the days that leaders are transformational, the followers are more likely to use their strengths, that's this one, and to take personal initiative. And this helps them to be engaged even the next day. We included next day work engagement and performance to have a causal pathway here. And engagement then helps to perform well. Also, we predicted that personal initiative, I should say, would be most effective in fostering work engagement if people would use their strengths. And that is what we see here. Personal initiative is positively related to next day work engagement if the participants also use their strengths. So when strength use was high, and when that was combined with personal initiative, the naval cadets were most likely to be engaged. Yeah, let's look at the implications for COVID-19. I think one important aspect that you could think about when it comes to leadership and job demands resources is that the leaders, they are not in close proximity to their followers. So we are talking now about remote leadership. And this means basically that leaders need to get in touch with their followers using video calls, video software, using WhatsApp, using the telephone, using the smartphone, to get regularly in touch, because if you don't, then how can you provide resources and how can you coach your followers to go in the direction that you envision. So I think it has become more complicated during the COVID-19 crisis to be a good leader. But one of the things you can do is to often get in touch, to really take your time to provide resources to your followers. That's the end of the second act.